Progress reports. As you continue through your project, you may need to update people on the progress. Your progress report might show up as an email sent to your specific boss more regularly, a memo sent to the larger team on a longer timeline, or as a standalone full report sent out to clients and formal stakeholders. So no matter how you are delivering your progress report, there are 4 big things you need to keep in mind. First, introduce the scope and the purpose. Just like all of them, provide a refresh on a background on the project and where in the overarching timeline this progress report exists. Is this the initial report? How long has it been since the last one? And how many months of work will this update cover? That kind of thing. If it's a quick progress status update to just your supervisor as an email or chat, that might be just one sentence of the background because they're probably super in the loop with what you're working on. If it's a standalone report to people who are investing millions of dollars into this project, your introduction, scope, and summary sections are probably going to be much longer, maybe a couple pages, as the scope of the project's probably bigger and the readers need to catch up on those details. That's why they're reading your report, to check back in on all the details. Then you always need to make sure that you outline the status of the work and actually give them the progress. Again, it might be a couple of bullet points if it's just going to your teammates or your supervisor, or it might need to be a much more in-depth, really broken down, with graphs and a calendar type of section. You might make a Gantt chart, which is basically a time frame of the project displayed out with typically horizontal bars. Usually the x-axis is the weeks and the y-axis reflects the tasks or stages. They are really great at visualizing how your tasks overlap and the sequence and dependencies in this big picture timeline view. But a Gantt chart can be super annoying to make from scratch inside of Word or Docs, even in Excel, so consider exporting it from a project management tool that has templates and schedule builders built in for you. Jira is a pretty big one across technical spaces, but there are loads on the market with free plans that can do it. Microsoft has a light project manager, planner, and projects that you might play around with as students. Then you also need to talk about the budget since it costs time and money to do these projects. So give them the situation, the money situation, and maybe how many hours you've put into it, since hours do translate to things like billing and that budget. If you need to acquire more resources or other significant updates, now would be the time to share it. And then you'll end with any conclusions, requests that you need to make, whatever it takes to get the project forward, as well as potential recommendations. The heart of a progress report is, you guessed it, reporting the progress. Reporting the progress means that you discuss the work that's been completed with any notable outcomes, the work under review, and the work that's remaining. Compare the work milestones to the initial plan or proposed timeline to show how things are developing. We have a couple of options in terms of how you might want to talk and structure that content. So you could do it in more of a time-based, where you kind of say, okay, over the last month, we completed XYZ task. Next month, we're going to complete 1, 2, 3 tasks. Think of it more like a calendar view with goals. The other option is task-based, where you say task 1 happened last month and it took this long. Here's what we did. Okay, task 2, started a couple weeks ago and here's what we're doing on that. Think of this one more like a to-do list. Both include details on the actions taken and the time frame. The difference is just the time-based emphasizes the time period and the task-based emphasizes the stage you're at. Time-based structures can be really helpful if the project has, a very hard timeline set and delivery date. Things that take place over longer periods, like a 6-month-long project, multi-year projects, they all lend themselves better, I think, to a time-based approach because you are working in these really big chunks. We'd be like, okay, over the first quarter, here's everything that we got done. Also, more agile projects, so one that focus on continuous development and iteration, even though they might not have a hard timeline necessarily, can be easily shown in a time-based structure because you discuss what you accomplished during a particular sprint or window of time. And then shorter projects might work better for a task-based approach, or if it has a lot of tasks associated with it that must be done in a clear sequence. So if your project can be finished in 8 weeks, it probably isn't as useful to talk about last week versus this week. Instead, it's more direct to discuss the tasks. We completed this task, we hit this roadblock here, but we're getting started on this next task. I find that more traditional or waterfall managed projects are easily reported in a task-based structure as each stage and all the associated tasks in that stage provide the organization for you. Now you can and will use both, sometimes even in the same report. You might want to introduce the progress section with a big picture task-based structure to refresh readers on what are all the steps involved here, but then need to explain some of the time-based elements as subheadings or for the more detailed points. Or it could be the other way around. It really just depends on the time period, your stakeholders, and the types of tasks that you're doing.